Hey all, I think it's said that in a man's working career, he will change professions at least a half dozen times before he retires. But when does the clock on work begin? Is it the job at the theater selling popcorn and candy, or is it working behind the counter of a convenience store, trying not to sell beer to minors? Do those first teenage jobs even count? Or does that clock begin after you have some level of independence? In my nearly 5 decades of life, I've had dozens of jobs. Well, maybe not dozens, but certainly few have really been anything like a career. After I graduated from college, I worked as a newspaper reporter. I was a pretty bad one. I was let go, understandably, and I never worked in journalism again. From there, I did temp jobs for a couple of years, before working for the New York State Assembly, writing press releases, and then writing energy legislation. For nearly a decade, I guess I had something like a career. And it was during that time I met my wife. We got married, and then we set about having a family. Without getting into details, I worked for the Democrats. But despite being a Democrat for years, the party and its changing priorities made me not want to be a Democrat anymore, and certainly not to work for them. So, I planned a career change at the not-so-young age of 36. I thought my next move should be to the utility industry. So I took a chance, and I got a degree in electrical construction and maintenance. Okay, so getting this degree is a piece of cake for most guys, but it wasn't for me. I was completely out of my league. Not only had I given up a pretty secure job, but right when I started back in school, I was making no money, and my wife was very, very pregnant with our first child. And before going back to college, I'd never even passed an algebra class. And aside from light carpentry and some unskilled laboring, I'd never really worked with my hands. And on top of all of that, I was inching towards 40, and I was competing against guys half my age. Motivated guys, smart guys, good with their hands, and capable of balancing equations. It's kind of crazy when I look back at it. I had written energy legislation without knowing the first thing about energy, about direct current, alternating current, resistance, voltage, circuits, certainly not bending pipe. Some days, I really despaired at school. I feared I'd be feeding my son dog food for lack of work. But after 2 years, I got that degree, and I had to set out to find work, to make something of all this. Unfortunately, despite applications, exams, and interviews, a utility job never happened. I never got a job with the power company. But I had to make something of that degree. And so, with some reservation, insecurity, and fear, actually, I took a job with a family-owned electrical construction company here in the Albany area. I'll be forever thankful that this company hired me. Honestly, I'm not even sure why they did. Despite the owner kind of acknowledging that I was old and inexperienced, he said, "Sure, show up next Monday. Be there early at this job site in Albany. We'll give you a shot. Just make sure to be on time. My son-in-law's the foreman. He'll tell you what you need to do." And so, with that, I signed on for a job that paid more than $10 less per hour than what I was making sitting at a desk. There was no insurance, only a promise of 1 week vacation, if I made it to 51 weeks. That's the life of an electrical apprentice. My first assignment? Working on a crew renovating an old brewery, less than a mile from the New York State Capitol where I had worked. It was being turned into what they called luxury apartments, for basically Albany's professional managerial class. It had a fancy name, but I called it Hipster Haven. My time at Hipster Haven started horribly. By day 3, they handed me a broom and told me to sweep up wood shavings from all the drilling we were doing, all day long. Sweep, sweep, and sweep some more. I heard one of my coworkers, Wayne, a certified Alabama redneck, tell my foreman that I was worthless. And you know what? He had a point. I was insecure, indecisive, and I was fearful. I was indecisive because I didn't realize you don't have to be perfect to learn a trade. And I was fearful because back home I had this little, beautiful toddler relying on his papa to make a living, to be a man. On the morning of my 5th day there, a Friday, I told my wife I was probably going to get let go that day. She told me not to worry. It would all work out, she said. When 3 p.m. rolled around, the foreman, really good guy, he came up and asked me, "So, what do you think of this job? Are you interested in coming back on Monday?" I couldn't believe it. I'd been fired before, and usually it starts with someone asking you how you think things are going. But this time, the foreman, he just shrugged and told me to come back to work next week. And I did. And I kept coming back for the next 50 weeks. I won't sugarcoat it. It was hard work for me. A lot of daily defeats. I was slow. My fingers didn't always obey my brain, or my brain didn't obey my fingers. Sometimes I bent the conduit pipe so badly that I had to spend like 30 minutes just trying to fix a bad bend. It was wasting time. It was kind of wasting their money. But I was willing to take the most basic tasks if they asked me. Wayne, the Alabama redneck, he loved mocking how bad I was. And he wasn't wrong. I was still hemming and hawing and not trusting my instincts. But eventually, I learned not to care what I thought other people thought. I just did my best. And to hell with Wayne. And to hell with what he thought. Because, unlike Wayne, I showed up on time. And I was sober. And sometimes, showing up, really, that's all it takes. Especially if you're not drunk. I worked with some great guys. Most of them were actually northern rednecks. After all, it is the North. Some were like a decade younger than me. But they took time to show me the tricks of the trade. They showed me how to pull wire, test circuits, bend pipe, make measurements, do a lot of different stuff. They helped me get better at this job, and I loved the camaraderie. They may not all have liked me, but I think they respected my hustle. Or as one guy called it, my giddy-up. Now, you may be noticing I've cycled through some of the same photos over and over in this video. I took them with a Walmart phone. I didn't take too many, and I think I lost a lot when I maybe had a phone die on me. You really weren't supposed to have your phone out anyway. It's a job site. It's kind of dangerous. And yeah, I think I lost a lot of the shots that I took. Ones that could kind of show this evolution from this old abandoned brewery into these luxury apartments. Some days I had this weird insecurity about working there. Snobbery maybe. Like maybe I thought I was better than this type of work. Or maybe because I thought I sucked so bad at it. I thought I had no business being there. One day on my lunch break, I took a walk around the block, and I saw this woman I'd briefly dated like 10 years earlier. I just realized she lived in the building right next door, which was also a brewery at one point. Kind of awkward. I smiled. She nodded. And I turned around, and I walked back to Hipster Haven, to this apartment that I used to enjoy sometimes taking a break in, taking my lunch in, that had a nice breeze when it was a hot day. Sometimes on lunch, I just worked right straight through. I spent a lot of time on ladders, drilled more holes than I could ever count, developed carpal tunnel in both hands. I wired oven hoods, kitchen lights, bathroom fans. I crawled through tight spaces. Luckily, I was in the best shape of my life. I spent weeks setting up conduit in this 150-foot basement that looked like it was a part of the wreck of the Titanic. It was dark and flooded and kind of creepy. But I loved setting up the conduit, and I loved setting the wire up, and I loved doing the wire pulls. It felt good. Putting together an electrical circuit was actually more fulfilling than anything I'd done behind a desk. I helped pull the cables that would be connected to the power system. And when the power company finally turned the juice on, the same power company that never hired me, we no longer needed generators. And that was nice, because at that point, it was the beginning of winter 2018-2019, which was really cold and really snowy. And I worked outside a lot that winter, freezing while drilling into brick and splicing wire with fingers that didn't seem to want to move. So I'd hop inside and warm up when I could with one of the heaters that I'd installed. And I'd be in that apartment I was talking about, thinking about my wife and my son. And I kept a little prayer book with me, and I'd read from it when I could. Eventually, I did tell Wayne to go F himself. Unless he had something important to say to me, I just didn't want to hear it. He actually did teach me something. You just gotta keep going. Wayne ended up getting fired for being lazy and, well, basically incompetent. But that's another story, and I wish him well wherever he is. I did learn a lot from him. The company was professional. They cared. They emphasized safety for us and for the tenants that were going to live there. It was not a fly-by-night operation. And maybe that's why they kept me around. Even though I definitely wasn't their best worker. I wanted to do things right. I'd think about my son, and I'd think about what it would be like for him to be sleeping in one of those apartments. I made it to just shy of 51 weeks before I finally took another desk job, one that I really hated, and one that I'd have for about 2.5 years. Eventually, I moved on to my current job, which I really like. Funny enough, It actually uses some of my electrical background. I never got the holiday pay. I didn't care. Days after I left, I missed that job at the electrical construction company. I really missed it. I returned a few weekends the following fall to help them finish up in another building. But when they were done there, my life was a little bit busier, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Sometimes on my lunch, at the job I have now, the one I really like, I walk around Hipster Haven. Well, I walk near Hipster Haven. It's just 10 minutes from my office. I cut through on the right of way, and I wonder what it's like to live there now. How many people have flipped on a light that I wired, or used the bathroom fan that I installed, or looked into the security cameras that I ran wires for? I can't say I still miss it. Starting out in the trades really isn't for an older man. I wish I had done it sooner, actually. Young people, especially young men, can learn a lot working with their hands. Not just skills, but grit, perseverance, showing up, sticking with it. It beats a body up. But if you show up on time, take care of yourself, and sleep well, you can make a good living, you can move up, and you can become resilient. I'm not sure that the 18-year-old me, or the 22-year-old me, or even the 28-year-old me would have appreciated being in high vis or wearing a hard hat all day, sweating. But that's youth, and a man's youth is brimming with foolishness and with pride. Sometimes life makes us wiser, or at least a little tougher, and that's what you need. Well, thanks for watching. It really means a lot to me. God bless you, and take care.